It doesn't look like we have anybody online, so we're going to introduce. So has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? And does anyone have any additions or corrections? If not, I'd like to hear a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Move on to input from online libraries elected representatives. Does anyone have any input for the committee today? If not, then we will move on.
Hey, I'm smiling.
You do?
No,
Okay.
it changed when you put it out there. You like input, and then I sent something out too with radio silence.
Yeah, it was.
Like it was good.
No, there wasn't radio silence, and you're talking about Blue Cloud Analytics and Direction Station?
I know that was actually kind of different. Okay.
Well, it was part of the same. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you know, Levon had asked a little bit about Blue Cloud.
True. Yeah.
Then you
I
asked.
guess there was radio chatter.
Well, if there is no actual input then, aside from what we saw over email, we'll move on to the technology project report. Donovan.
All right, as always, there's a cooperative technology purchase going on. The PC deployments for the spring purchase are complete except for some deep freeze installations, which have to do with PCs that are being upgraded from Windows XP. The order form for the summer purchase is out, and the orders are due back to us on July 25th. As I've reported in the last few meetings, we are slowly but surely upgrading Faro sites to the new version of the software. 16 out of 22 sites have been completed. Some of those are being carried out in conjunction with cooperative purchase trips to reduce the travel time. So we want to get this done, but we're not in an all-fire hurry, so we're kind of taking our time and trying to be a little more efficient about it. As I've also reported in the last couple of meetings, we are migrating hosted websites to a cloud-based provider, SiteGround. We started that in April. 12 of 23 sites have been migrated, including the SELCO website. That installation or that migration process involves no changes to domains or URLs. So from the patron perspective, it should be pretty seamless. Also, the way it is done, no downtime is experienced by the sites. There is usually a day or two where library staff cannot update the website, but the site itself never actually goes down. So we are slowly but surely working our way through that as well. Part of the reason this one's taking a while is each site has to be tested on its own. Every site has their own WordPress plugins and themes, and sometimes those work and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, Terry has to work with the library staff to come up with either fixes or other plugins and themes that are comparable. So there's a lot of actual hands-on work associated with this project. As reported in the last Technology Users Group meeting, we are looking to create a committee of volunteers to help create content for the online catalog in the rooms. We're looking for 6 volunteers. Right now we have 2. We are going to probably start calling people soon and begging, pleading, twisting arms, blackmailing, promising things, whatever it takes to get people to sign on. No programming skills are required. There's a very nice editor. If you've ever placed an article in a forum or done anything on a WordPress site, it will look very familiar to you. And we'll launch the room when we get enough volunteers. In the meantime, SELCO staff are just working on generating the rooms. So I'm hopeful we'll get 4 more people soon and we can get that off the ground. So if anyone is just itching to create content at your libraries, or if you are, put them in touch with Rachel or me.
And I just want to say that I think this can be as little or as much as the staff member wants to do. So if it is, just because I know you've got a great talented person working on children's services in Austin, there are others as well, but you know, if you've got a staff person who is technically competent that wants to help develop 1 or 2 rooms, that's good. If you've got somebody who's like absolutely gung-ho and wants to do 1 a month with us, that's okay too. So don't feel that it has to be overwhelming. It really, and other than some things that probably, you know, this Christmas room should probably be available in December. Really, some of this, there is no time limit. Science fair room might need to be around and starting in development before kids start working on science fairs, but I see some of these rooms in constant development as well. So I don't know that some of the topics necessarily have any deadline whatsoever.
Most of them do not, actually. So, and while I mentioned that computer skills were not really necessary, you don't need to know HTML or programming. If anything, I would say what really is needed is good reference skills, the ability to work with patrons and know what kind of content people are interested in. I think that would probably be the most important thing. We are especially on the hunt for someone from the school media centers and also from a children's librarian from one of the public libraries. Those are some skills we're especially on the hunt for. So we'll take anyone who's interested.
Give me some ideas of some topics you've done.
Right now, most of our rooms have been focused on holidays because those are fairly easy to churn out. We have a template that seems to work pretty well. But we have also created rooms for Minnesota Book Awards, which is a really nice one that has links to all the different books as well as content about them. Cheryl did a jobs and employment room, which I think serves as a great model for what a room can be. We have been working on genre rooms. So, for example, mysteries, science fiction, things like that. The rooms we're creating right now, I don't want to say they're cookie cutter, but it's the same people creating them, so there is a certain continuity there. I would love to see that get mixed up a little bit.
You want to add something since you've done a lot in SELCO?
There's a lot of room to get creative with the rooms because they're basically designed to be websites that are collations of different types of collections. So you can think of, I tend to think of it in terms of subject headings because that's my background, but you can think of any sort of subject and come up with a room around that. They could, in a lot of ways replace like LibGuides and that kind of stuff too for research material. If I had more time, I have a list of rooms I would love to work on, like a travel room would be great, so that when so-and-so walks in your library and says, I'm going to Mexico, you could have something ready. So they could be designed to be more of a ready reference tool, too. There's a lot you can do with them, with just a little bit of creativity.
I think in the media centers, there's a lot of room for curriculum-based rooms, possibly rooms for specific homerooms, specific instructors' classes. I think there's a lot of potential there. I personally would love to create a Civil War room if I could find the time, which I have not yet. Hobby rooms I think could be really useful. Really, anything that you can think of as a reference question or something you might create a Pathfinder or a display on, I think would be a great
Now, when it's set up, it pulls materials from that have the subject heading, or they're selected by the person setting up the room?
It can be done either way, right, Cheryl? Yeah, those are both possible approaches.
Okay. You basically create little Boolean searches in the background that say, look for this in this mark tag is one way of doing it. So I go to subject heading because that's what I want. Yeah. But you could look for this that's in the title, audience level. So you could do it towards different, anything in that mark record you can pretty much grab for the most part. I should say that. everything, but some areas are easier to work with than others. Sure. Yeah.
And Cheryl, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can also go a little more freeform and just create HTML if you've got a specific list you want to put in. You don't want to have something automated that's pulling it.
That's what Chris is working on for DVDs right now. She's looking at your plugins that you guys have on your websites that are basically lists. She's turning those into web groups to see, to kind of manipulate. She's still testing it. So.
Like a new materials room, for example, or new DVDs.
And once these rooms are developed, how do the libraries decide if they want those on their individual? Is there somewhere where they're going that builds the rooms for them when they're doing development?
That is the intention. Right now, we don't have enough rooms that we've put a list out. We do have most of them on the SELCO profile, which makes the SELCO profile pretty cluttered. As we start to create more, we will need to have probably some kind of web-based directory. Each library can decide which rooms they want on their profile and how those are structured. That's a very individualistic process, and so it'll involve working with the help desk decisions, and then we can set it up for them. Any room that is created by the committee or by SELCO staff will be made available to all of the libraries. They may not always be completely applicable to all libraries, but nobody's going to be creating rooms for just their library's use. Now, in some cases, that means creating a template. So, for example, if someone wants to get creative and do a local history room, probably what we'll have them do is create one for their own library, and then we'll try to take that and use it as a model that other libraries can help plug their content into. So it depends on the nature of the room. A holiday room probably doesn't change a lot from one library to another.
Are you going to have kind of a free meeting to explain how to do this?
Right now, yes. Right now the plan is to have at least quarterly meetings, and I'm interested in the idea of having monthly work meetings, work days, which would be optional. Occasionally on our teams, if we have some big project going on, we might block off half a day and everyone just meets in a meeting room and we just kind of plug away on it. And for some of our teams, that seems to work pretty well. So I'm interested in making that option available to this group. On the other hand, if someone would rather just stay home and work on it on their own and come to the quarterly meeting, that would certainly be okay too.
But with these,
technician would come.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I'll name your name.
That would be great. That'd be great. Yes, Ann?
Is there a way, or will there be a way to know if they're effective, like if they're driving teaching behavior, check out, or click to external links, or something like that? And how will we know it's worth the effort?
What kind of reporting capability do we have?
Google Analytics installed, but I haven't had a chance to look at the reports yet.
And so Google Analytics would, I mean, I just looked at our report and it tells me people come to us from Texas. That's about all I can see.
Is there any other Austin?
I have, but I don't know very much about it. But how, like, just the number of clicks? Or?
Well, unfortunately, the software itself doesn't give us any pre-set up metrics or reports to show that. So anything like that, we would probably have to try and do our own, starting with Google Analytics. So that's a good question. I don't have a great answer for it.
You could consider StatCats on the items on the collections, and then a report on that. So.
That would also be, I think that would be a good enhancement suggestion for Cersei Dynex.
I think that's always
Are there ways to do like dynamic tasks, such as say pull out a list of items that are checked out most often at your library or currently most requested?
That would be a challenge.
Cheryl's shaking her head now.
Yeah, we've played with trying to put JavaScript into the rooms. That has not gone real well for us, but I know on Horizon L there are a few sites that have done that. It's possible, but there are some real challenges.
Put that local request on. How are you going to handle that?
What do you mean?
Well, each room is going to be for all the libraries, right? Or individual libraries.
They can be either.
The template would be available to all libraries, but you would customize the room to your unique if you want to, right?
Or you can create unique rooms for just the library. If you kind of wanted an independent films library or a room, they would have that on theirs.
And as a general rule, the room is just going to take you to a search or a specific record in the catalog. Any request function would be handled by Horizon according to whatever parameters are in place, including a local request.
But I just wonder, so kind of where I'm going with this is, imagine you have a room that said, well, here are the most popular items at this library. Of course, they're also checked out the time, so then you could have some verbiage that says, oh, here's how the process for requesting these, and your item's particular way of doing that.
Yeah. We do have an ebooks room, which does include, for example, some information on how the ebook programs work. So that would be a model, possibly.
And you had a comment, question?
Well, I was wanting to just check my understanding, because I've looked at a couple, and we put some of them up. I was really excited about, like a couple of those, like accelerated readers that seem like a good fit. So the way I have understood it is if like saved search with graphics.
That's one way to create a room. It's not the only way.
Okay.
I would think of them as sort of like HTML pages. You can have links, graphics, text, any combination of that. Those links can be pre-canned searches, or they could be deep links to a specific record in the catalog, or they could go to something on the internet outside. Cheryl and Tyler might have more specific answers on that.
The way that we currently have it set up for most of the rooms is they are just pre-generated searches or links to titles. It is also a possibility to have searches that can use predefined limits, which would be dynamic based on what you search within that, which would be the same as, the search Austin Public Library, search all libraries. Inside the room, you could have specific, like, search science fiction materials and then search a title or an author and searches within that limit. It is also possible to do certain things with JavaScript to play around with facets, which is like how the AR room works. That's dynamic in the fact that it recreates the search every time you click on it. It's not a static link like most of the other rooms are.
I guess I would just add, sorry, Ann, that there's a lot you can do with JavaScript that I'm not as familiar with as Tyler is. And you can do a lot with the MARC record, and you can do little with the item record. So think of it in that terms. There's some things you can do in the item record, like you could pull out by call number, but the web services calls just aren't there for some things, but they're coming. They are coming.
So I can't see all the horror films in Austin that are checked in, because that would be item level.
Some item information, but in that case you're talking about status, which gets more complicated, and we'd have to look at it.
So
Yeah.
some you can do
Probably
something
not.
and something
Yeah.
else. Okay.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of interest, so 2 out of 6. Sign up.
Come join us. It'll be fun. We are just starting a project to replace our blade array and servers. This is going to be a big project. All of our virtual servers live on our blade arrays, so we're going to be pulling out the array and replacing it. It's about 3 years old, so we're getting to the point where we're ready to phase that equipment out. We are expecting no downtime from this project. We'll be doing the blades one at a time while keeping the existing production blades in operation. So it should be a matter of just plugging in new equipment and then decommissioning old equipment as we bring the new stuff up. We've ordered the equipment, and at the time I wrote this slide, it had not arrived yet, but it arrived this morning. So we've got great big boxes in the server room right now that are being pulled out, and equipment is being put into the server rack. We went to the same company that we purchased our SAN from last year, Davenport up in the Twin Cities. They are a Dell resupplier. So just like with the SAN, we will go to them for support, and then they will contact Dell as needed. That has worked very well with the storage area network, and I'm pretty confident that it will work well with the blades. With the SAN, they actually sent a technician down here for 4 days to help us install and get everything running. Nobody there or here thinks that that's going to be necessary with the blades, but they do have technicians that can hop online and join us if there is a question or a problem. So we're pretty excited. I don't want to badmouth anybody, but this is the last piece of HP equipment we have in our server room, the old blade array, and I'm kind of happy to have it on the way out. We're excited. After the blades are installed, the next project that we're going to be getting started is new Citrix servers. The version of Citrix we're running right now is approaching end of life. We have about 8-9 more months that we can still get support on that. So once all the blades are in place, we will be upgrading our Citrix farm and migrating all of the data. And I say upgrade, but I probably shouldn't use that word because there is no direct upgrade path. We'll actually be installing new virtual Citrix servers and then migrating data over to it. So much like the blade servers, we're not expecting any downtime because we won't actually shut off the old servers until the new ones are up and running. So that will be happening, assuming all goes well with the blades, that will be happening probably August, September. We are starting a DNS overhaul. DNS, domain name server, sorry, is the server that connects different domains like SELCO.info to the specific IP addresses of the servers that provide those websites. Our DNS server has a lot of old information in its files, and so we've decided that it's time to do some cleanup. We were kind of reluctant to do that. DNS is kind of touchy, and for a while we were just trying not to touch it too often for fear of breaking something. But we've decided as a team that it's time to clean up things a little bit. Now that we have our new network specialist on staff, he'll be taking responsibility from that with support from the rest of the systems team. We're going to be doing that very slowly. We're going to look at one entry at a time. As he identifies entries that he thinks might be outdated or redundant, the team will take a look at them, we'll do some testing, and then once we decide we're confident, we will delete that entry. And I don't know why I wrote system specialist on this bullet. That should say network specialist, so I made a mistake. Yes?
Are there tens of thousands of
Oh, no. The number's probably measured more in the
2020.
it's measured more in the tens, and it's less than 50.
Okay.
But it only takes one redundant or duplicated entry to create a problem. And we have not been as diligent cleaning this up as we probably should have been over the last 3 or 4 years. Partly because we didn't want to break anything.
Since you've migrated email off in-house, is there, and you're migrating the WordPress sites as well, is there a look to the future to be migrating the SELCO domain itself and the DNS servers? Or
it's funny that you asked that. I don't believe I have it on one of the project slides because we haven't started yet, but after we get done with the DNS overhaul, the next task we have for our network specialist and the rest of the systems team is to make a decision on whether we should have our internet service provider host our DNS, which is something we are very interested in. Previous ISPs that we've worked with have not provided that service, but this one does. I don't know that DNS is the server that we are the most comfortable working with, so I'm very attracted to that idea. We would lose a little bit of control. Right now, we can just hop onto that server and start making changes. In future, if we needed to add, say, a new domain, say we've launched a new website, we would actually have to contact the ISP, and they would go onto the server and make that change, hopefully promptly. But we would be subject to their terms of service and how often they can have technicians do that. With planning, that's not a problem. So we are very interested in that.
Well, refresh my memory. Does SELCO have an intranet?
We do have a staff intranet in the sense of we have a content management system with some pages for SELCO staff.
That would be the only thing that would be somewhat of an advantage of the DNS in-house if you had a strong internet, and I don't remember that process.
And actually, we have 2 DNS servers. There is an external one, and there is an internal one that is behind our DMZ. The only one we're thinking about having hosted is the external DNS server that's open to the entire internet. By having them hosted, it insulates us a little bit from denial of service attacks and other security problems. That's another good reason to make the change. Did you have something else?
Well, I'm just wondering, you know, if that is what you're going to look at more thoroughly, why would you want to overhaul it in the meantime until you've made the decision whether or not to?
Because they wouldn't actually be maintaining the zone files for us. They would only put into it what we told them to.
Okay.
So it seems to make sense to clean it up before we make that change. Assuming we do. I'm about 90% on board with making the change. But there is some question of whether or not they're always going to be our internet service provider. And that would be one reason to be a little cautious. So it's entirely possible we may decide to defer the decision until next year when we're going through our E-rate process and deciding whether or not an ISP change is in the cards. That's something the team has talked about, but no decisions have been made. We're going to let our new network specialist get through the DNS overhaul, and then we're going to start tackling that question. So we have more questions than answers on that right now. And later on in the agenda, Tom will be joining us, so you'll get a chance to meet him, Tom Rauchka. We are in the midst of a SELCO PC lease, just as we run leases for some online libraries. SELCO PCs are also done through a lease. Our 3-year lease ended in June, so we've started a new one. I have one of the new laptops. I'm very proud. And Tyler does not yet. We've only issued them to about 4 people right now because we are just getting off the ground. We only ordered them right in July with the start of the new fiscal year. So the equipment just arrived about a week ago. We'll be replacing all SELCO PCs and laptops, including the ones in the training lab. Imaging has been going on, and we've started the deployments. And then we wrap that up by wiping the old equipment and sending it back to Dell.
That's right. That's right.
No, we decided to stick with Windows 7 for this one. Not quite that bold. We have a couple of LSTA projects going on right now. The Community School Media Centers is Online Partners Project, better known as the Red Wing School Project. We are automating the Red Wing High School Media Center. Bibliographic and item records have been pulled from their old ILS and migrated to Horizon in a testing capacity. We have ordered PCs and other equipment for the school. Their IT staff is going to be handling the deployment of that. So we're just purchasing the equipment with grant funds. Training for the Media Center staff started the week of July 14th. And the next step, which actually I think has been partially completed since this slide was written, was to get their enterprise profile and Horizon parameters set up. My understanding as of today is that the enterprise profile is done, but we haven't set up Horizon yet. Is that correct?
100% done.
Almost there. And we are working with the Media Center staff. And there's a lot of other things going on as well that I didn't put in here. Barcodes have been ordered and a lot of that kind of work. And I should have put on the slide, the goal is to go live with them in September for the new school year. So these school projects move pretty fast once we actually can start in July.
I think, isn't this probably the first time in many, many, many years that we've actually been able to start in July?
Or start on July 1st.
Start on July 1st.
Sometimes we've started in July, but it's been 2 weeks in.
Exactly.
And those 2 weeks when you're trying to barcode a collection make a
Our-
whole lot of difference.
Yep. Yep. So we're very pleased. And they're very excited, by the way. So, yeah, maybe a bit too excited. But that's okay.
Careful.
All right.
Cautious.
Yeah. So they're anxious to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. It's just go.
The other LSTA project project, which is just getting started with the new fiscal year, is the Data-Driven Collection Development Project. That's the Collection HQ project that we've talked about in this group. We've purchased the service and provided Collection HQ with our data. They are going to spend the next few weeks running their analysis. And training on collection development in preparation for the workshops that will be happening this fall starts in September. Anything to add to that, Cheryl?
Next week, I'll be contacting the pilot library.
Yep. Okay.
Is that with a period or a question mark at the end?
Period. We'll put a
That
period.
is the next step.
Yeah.
That's the next step that comes.
Right. So that is my next step. And when does everybody else get it?
Well, we got to get through the project first. It's a one-year project, and I wanted to clarify something. While we are going to be working with pilot libraries, we have provided Collection HQ with all the data. So we are going to be doing analysis on all the public libraries. Unfortunately, they don't serve school media centers, but we are analyzing everything because honestly, you have to. Even if you're only working with some pilot libraries, you still need the data from all the public libraries in order to have a better data set. So while we're working with the pilots, we are analyzing everyone.